This is the Betteshanger Park race on RGT. I think this is one of the best weekly events on RGT or really any platform. Always get a really good mix of riders, a lot of strong people. I think we had about 50 on the line today, 40-something finishers, so solid crew. I've switched to the rally jersey here, the orange with the two white chevrons going up, no helmet, and got the whole shot today. Maybe overdid it a touch there, but these starts have been fast and furious at this race, week in, week out. So I would rather do a little bit extra work to make sure I'm not caught off the back. There was a lot of talk in the RGT Facebook group about how hard these starts are, and we were kind of analyzing it. And it's so easy if you're not really tucked into the group here to get tailed off. And I wanted to point out the speeds here. So we're doing 30 miles an hour there, which I'm in imperial units, but if you're used to kilometers per hour, that's probably right around 50 kilometers per hour, 55 kilometers per hour. So if you're not drafting through here, you're really going to get tailed off pretty quickly. And doing that kind of speed on your own, you saw there was a little bit of a kicker there in a couple turns where it sort of filters down and strings out, which is really realistic to real life. If you've done any circuit races like this that only have a couple turns, you know that it'll always slow down and then get strung out. But now coming out of this turn, we're back up to doing almost 40 miles an hour on this little 2% downhill, but we're just going to hold that over 50, 60K, 30, 40 miles an hour. And at these kind of speeds, if you let one bike length go, that can really be a death sentence. And we were talking about how these races go, and they do kind of settle in. Like the start is always super hard, and there are certain points on RGT courses, I'll say, where it's easiest to get caught out. And I think that dovetails with real life. It's easy to get caught out after a turn because of that same effect, the braking into the corner. If one guy slows down, the next guy has to slow down more, and that kind of trickles backwards, especially in a field of this size. We got, again, 40, 50 people here. And then also on some of these little ups and downs, I think some people like to race with their trainer difficulty, or I think on RGT it's labeled feedback intensity, which probably is a little bit better of a terminology for it, honestly. But it's basically the amount of gradient your trainer is simulating. A lot of people race with that turned down really low, and if you're doing that and you're not paying attention to what the gradient is on the top right there, it's really easy for some of those like 2 and 3% to sneak up on you. And if you're just doing like 230 like I am right now, up one of those, it's easy to come out the back really quick. And if those little 2% ups lead straight into a little 2% down, the speed can go back up really quickly, and then the group is doing 30 and you're doing 30 on your own by yourself. That's the difference between possible and impossible sometimes. I mean, that's what gets you tailed off. It's happened to me before on RGT in some of these races for sure. Looks like we got Jasper taking a little first lap flyer here. He's kind of the man to beat on RGT right now. He's won a lot of races on here. Super strong Belgian guy, always making it hard, making it fast. Looks like he's just putting in a little tester here to see who's fresh and see who wants to go with him. I'm going to try to kind of monitor this move, and if the elastic starts to snap, I'll probably go across to him. But even Jasper probably doesn't want to go this early into this race. So these are 22 miles. It ends up generally being about 45 or 50 minutes, which perfect length for me. These races are like a Tuesday night crit in UK time, which makes them like sort of lunchtime for me. So I'm working from home during coronavirus. So generally what I do here is take an early lunch, just eat some leftovers or something while I'm still working, hop on the trainer for 50 minutes and then get straight back to work. It's been fun to be able to jump into these and race with some people. So this circuit is Betteshanger Park. I mean, this one's in English and my pronunciation's still bad, but this is an actual park with a little like cycling circuit track. I'm assuming they have real races. I kind of looked into it on the internet. It looks like this is This course is based on a GPX file from this actual park in Kent in the UK, and looks like this is somewhere that people go to ride their road bikes, to train and to race. So it's cool to just jump onto someone else's little circuit. I know, you know, everybody's got their roads like this that are maybe like nothing special in some, you know, they're not the Quermont, they're not Alpe d'Huez or whatever, but they're sort of the local thing, and there's a lot of history to them, and there's a lot of you know, blood, sweat, and tears on the road. So it's cool on RGT to hop on and check some other people's roads out. And it looks like we're coming into the section right here. There's always this little right-hand bend before the turn. And I do believe, yeah, this is the sharp turn. So you see I kind of slid up to the front here. I just want to make sure I'm not caught out. So there's that right-hand corner, and then there's a little 2% uphill drag. And then the left hand we just came through there is the sharpest corner on the course, and things always tend to get real strung out after that corner. So I used that little 2% uphill to slide up to the front so I could keep a little bit more even power. I'm checking back to see, and as I expected, the field is pretty shredded. If you're one of those people who was flying back into the group right now, you just had to do a pretty big effort to get there. So that was kind of the name of the game for me today, was to make sure I'm in a decent position coming into that turn, and then just sort of monitor the super fast guys here. Make sure, you know, if one person slips away, that's not as big of a deal, but if a group starts to form off the front with, say, let's see, some of the strong RGT guys, Melville, Deca, I'm just kind of watching these names churning on the left over here. And Paraday, I kind of know who I'm watching for at this point. And if we start getting 2 or 3 of those names in the mix, I'm going to try and jump over to it. The chat was getting pretty lively this time. Couple people, at some point, someone was like, oh, this feels like a recovery ride. And I told them they could feel free to attack at any point. So got a little spicy, as the Tuesday night crits generally do. Speaking of spicy, it looks like we got another attack from Jasper going pretty early here. Like I said, these are long races, especially for an E-race, so to go solo from this distance would be pretty gnarly, but you can see things start to get a little pointy at the front here, and I'm just going to make sure that I kind of surf the wheels forward. Even though I was staying in the wheels there, I was still doing 360 watts or something like that. I want to make sure we're not going to give him too much rope, because Jasper has been known to go from a distance and hold off the pack. Although this is sort of the premier race on RGT, at least attendance-wise by the strong guys, and on a flat circuit like this, I think there are enough people that are kind of chomping at the bit that we're going to get him back. But that was why I did that little effort, was to just make sure the group keeps rolling fast. And looks like we got somebody trying to make a bridge up there, and in my mind right now, 2 is getting a little bit too close for comfort, a little bit more than I would want to let just roll away. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that, and as long as we stay rolling about 31 or 30, you know, fast, as long as we keep rolling fast in the group, I'm gonna stay where I'm at. But if the motivation on the front of our group seems to start lacking, I might try and slingshot across. Again, it's pretty early, so I don't necessarily want to waste my bullets to get to a 2-man move. But I do respect the moxie here. This is what makes the race fun. And I'm also not noticing the names of some of the people that are going across here. But as more and more people start to make this bridge, I know the alarm bells are going to start ringing. So probably this is going to be sort of like the opposite of when the elastic snaps. You know, when we say the elastic snapping, it's like it lines up single file, and then eventually someone lets a gap go and it goes away. The opposite of that is like their group sort of strings out, and then our group strings out, and we meet just like we're doing right now. So it's not like we really overtook them as a blob. It's like both groups got strung out, and coming back into this corner. So I just want to make my way toward the front, because I don't doubt that one of these guys, Melville, looks like this was his first big attack. I was kind of thinking Jasper might try and make another go there, knowing that people had just put a big attack in to get him back, sometimes counterattacking yourself, even though it's sort of counterintuitive, can be the best move. And when I see Melville and Jasper going up the road there, I put in a little kick to make sure I was going to get there, and did roll back onto the back of them. So I really wasn't trying to be the one to shut that move down, but I definitely didn't want to let a Jasper and a Melville move go. We got a big split in the group, though. It's good that I was so close to the front before that corner, because I think most of the people who were behind that split made it. But again, those are the kind of efforts that that burn you out in a race like this. Once again, we're coming into this turn section. There's that little right hand and then this 2% grade coming into the turn. I'm just going to punch through here and make sure that I stay in a decent position. But this one looks like it's going to get pretty strung out. Again, that turn tends to be a crucial point, and that little group, I'm just not going to let them go. They can easily get on this downhill. You can just get up ahead of steam and get away. So I'm going to make sure I just keep an eye on that throughout this race, really. I think we might need a combativity award for this race. If there had been one, for sure it would have been won by Jay Melville today. He put in a big attack right here that almost catches me off the back. But this is the first of many for him, and good place to do it before this little bend. The group pulls him back, but I just wanted to highlight that was a foreshadowing of things to come for sure, that he would put in a big effort, and I would try not to be caught off the back when that happens from here on in. Here's one where I absolutely get the turn wrong and pay for it. I kind of put my effort in too early, backed off too early, and other people came under me on the left here, and you can see it just sort of lines up, echelons up. And I'm pretty far toward the tail end of people who are in contact here, and gotta put in. It didn't look too extreme, but I was doing 400 watts for a second there, just really barely hanging on. And I did a good job of staying calm. It would have been easy to panic and stand up right there, but just making sure that people were continuing to filter into those gaps around me and sort of bridge the distance. Bridge the draft, so to speak. So there's like the guy in front of me has a bike length and then a draft, and then a guy in front of him has a bike length and then a draft. Just got to make sure that that stays true. This probably would have been a decent time to attack right now. I got a pretty good look at the front, and the field was sort of disorganized and everybody's trying to get on. But we're still pretty early, and I'm honestly hurting pretty hard. I was looking to sprint well tonight too, so I had a really good sprint in the first one of these races I did, won it, and I haven't been able to take one since. So really wanted to try and do a little bit better tonight in the sprint. So maybe race them a little bit more conservatively. I don't know how well that served me. And the weird little effect you see happening with the road here is actually because, so this is a magic road, meaning that it's created from a GPX file, and it's actually multiple laps, which the current iteration of Magic Roads is not really made to do that, but what you do is basically lay a brand new road on top of the old road for each lap. So occasionally, if the altitude data is like, a few inches up and down each way, you'll get that effect where you're sort of seeing the current lap and then the part of the previous lap is actually under it. It doesn't really affect the performance in any way, just sort of a little graphical thing. Again, doesn't bother me, especially for the functionality of being able to load up any route and race on roads all over the world, race on different courses. I really like the functionality, so I don't mind that. And they've also been teasing sort of, this is Magic Roads 1.0. They've been teasing Magic Roads 2.0, which I think is probably going to clear up some of these issues. I think it's probably going to have some more robust generation for the scenery at the sides. But honestly, I mainly use Magic Roads to race on different courses and race on different routes. And when I'm racing, especially something as hard as a lot of these RGT races are, I'm doing 280 watts average power for for the whole thing, which is, you know, an hour right around my threshold. I'm not doing a whole lot of looking at the scenery. So, I mean, it'll be cool when it happens, but it honestly doesn't bother me when I'm racing. Maybe if I was using these magic roads to just ride around or train on, I might like that a little bit more. Did a better job here than in the past of got a little bit off the back and just ramped the power up just enough to get back in without slingshotting all the way through the group past off the front. So I'm figuring it out a little bit more. I think as this race went on, I got better at feathering the power exactly where it needed to be to kind of conserve a little bit. Skipping ahead a little bit, we're coming into the corner. My position's looking pretty good. Just want to make sure I stay in contact with this front group. I'm seeing a lot of the names up here putting down watts, so I just kick it up a little bit, close to 400 for a second there. But great attack from Melville. This is another big one from him, and again, I don't want to be the sole one chasing it down, but as some of these guys look like they might be trying to jump across to it, I just want to try and ride one of these trains across. But enough people sounded the alarm there that we're back on. But really well timed attack, and I think it tailed some people off. You can see I'm 24th here, and we started with almost double that, so cutting the peloton in half right around the halfway mark of the race here. That seems to be kind of the order of these e-races, is about whatever you start with, half of them are going to end up getting dropped. So right on par. Coming through the finish, watch the left side here. We got an absolute scorcher from Melville, 12 watts a kilo. He's really committing to these moves, which is super respectable. Not sure what I'm listening to here. I added a bunch of like slightly embarrassing like 90s and 2000s punk and hardcore to my playlist, so probably listening to some of that. But Melville's got a good gap here, and I'm starting to get hot, so I take the straps off. I realized I lost my ice pack there. It was only in the bibs and not in the base layer, which part of the reason I wear the base layer is so I can hold the ice on the back. I do think the base layer keeps me a little bit cooler until it gets completely soaked, but once it's soaked through, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It does evaporate. I think because there's more surface area, things evaporate off it, you know, a little bit more quickly. You can see we're picking up a little lap traffic here. I'm always worried on these e-racing platforms, if I don't push a little bit as we move through the lap traffic, I might actually get caught on the wrong wheel and get sucked out the back. If that's never happened to you, that's a very real problem that does happen occasionally on these platforms. A few Ks down the road here, and coming into a corner, not the corner, but a corner, and Jasper's setting up to snap here, and right as we're coming around this lap traffic, it's a good move. He's on the front, he's kind of sitting up and taking stock and realizes that nobody's really going. Oh, Melville actually puts the big dig in here. For some reason I thought it was Jasper who did this one, but I realized that I'm up here with two of the favorites, and if I sort of stick this together, it could be the group. Even if we don't drop everybody, if the three of us pull it together and a couple of guys are with us, that could either be the group or cause some attrition off the back. And I am looking for a sprint today, but I think I would rather sprint from a group of 10 than a group of 25. So if one of these little moves is going to happen, I definitely want to be a part of it, especially with some of these stronger guys. And it does look like Melville and Jasper might commit. So we have a good little working group here, but I think we get swallowed up. I think there was some attrition off the back. Regardless, it's definitely making other people work. So if we can get together and set a good tempo for a minute, that's just good racing. So definitely happy to do that. Jumping ahead a few K, I think this was the move of the day. Right next to me, there goes Melville with another, 14, almost 15 watt per kilo. He's putting down like my final sprint in these early moments of the race, 6K to go. Definitely early to be putting down 14 watts a kilo. You can see he snapped hard and got a huge gap immediately. He's almost like a speck in the distance there. Looks like he's got several yards. It is weird, you know, the fact that it gives time gap in distance. That's one of the things I like the least about RGT. I would prefer a time gap rather than a gap in feet or yards or whatever. But he's got a pretty healthy gap here. I think he got it out to about 100 yards, which pretty significant. You can barely see him in the distance, and nobody's really responding. It looks like he's holding 6 watts a kilo up there, so you can see that he's definitely committed to this effort. And this is a good move, because we're at that stage of the race where people are starting to think about, you know, closing laps, saving it for a sprint. And nobody who wants to sprint really wants to chase. And I think everybody who was motivated to chase early on has maybe burned the legs out. You always got to sort of read the group and find what that sweet spot is for, you know, if I go now, no one will chase me. Because also, if you leave it too late in those closing laps, the tensions get so high. Everybody's sort of like on edge. And right when one person snaps, everybody starts to snap up to him. So I think this is a well-timed move, and the kind of thing that you really only see on RGT, someone getting this much time solo and holding it for this long solo. I think Jasper through the turn there sort of snuck up the inside and then started putting down a pretty hard effort. So once I see Jasper's going, I think regardless of what everyone else is doing, I got to get to that wheel, got to make sure that I'm there. I get up here and things kind of slow down a little bit, but people keep filtering through. So my hope is these groups, this will continue to splinter, and we'll keep sort of slingshotting to the front and maybe sort of coalesce around Melville with a smaller group. And I think we did drop a few people here, just pulling him back into the group there. Great effort from him, though. Solid. Again, definitely most combative on the day. Kudos. Wanted to highlight this one. This is a good little 1-2 punch, but we got a guy I don't recognize off the front, Towin, putting in a little dig. Definitely a good effort. Again, like well-timed, 4K out, kind of a weird little number. But what I wanted to highlight here is right as we bring him back, the counter goes from Melville, and that's a classic bike racing move. He doesn't even wait for that guy. He just sort of slingshots right past him, thinking maybe they can get together off the front, but that's a great move. I'm going to try to move up through here on the little section before these turns and make sure that if a group is going to go across to them, I'm in the group. But it looks like we're in that sort of closing lap frenzy swarm where everybody wants to shut everything down, so I don't have too much to worry about. But I do want to make sure that on this little spot before the turn, I'm going to try and move up a few wheels so I don't get caught out, because it could definitely split right here. So it looks like it might be splitting, and that might be the group. So I'm going to get up there, even if that makes it where I'm the one who is doing a lot of the work to just pull the group back up to them. We're late enough into it, you know, maybe I'm the one who's high strung here, but I think me keeping it fast, like 400 watts after that turn, kept the group rolling pretty fast and glued that one back together. So I think that was the right move. I don't really regret wasting those watts. Got another little attack from the same guy who got kind of countered by Melville a minute ago, someone I don't fully recognize, but good effort from him. He didn't really snap as hard as Melville does. Didn't put in something like over 10 watts a kilo to get away, but he gets a little gap here and then just kind of commits to it. I've heard this technique referred to as the Russian step. Sometimes when you snap and make a big out of the saddle effort, that makes the alarm bells go off for everybody. So sometimes the way to do it is you just sort of click one gear, spin up, click another gear, spin up, click another gear, spin up, and like, because no one, you know, on one of these online platforms sees your watts per kilo go crazy and sees your avatar go crazy. But in real life, it's like people sneak away that way, because when you see someone physically like throwing the bike around, you have that instant like Pavlovian reaction of like, oh, I got to get there. looks like Melville starts to go across here, and that is going to be alarm bells for Jasper. And I see I'm watching what he's doing, and I want to make sure that I stay with this group, but it does look like he's doing enough to weld it back together. But that was a classic case of welding. He didn't jump across to that group. He just welded it back together. Coming into the finale here, and I'm going to point out the exact moment I lost the race. We got Deca, who one of the strongest guys on RGT for sure, putting in a big effort. He's really saved his bullets today, so you know he's serious about this one. And I see the group starting to thin out, so I kind of decide I'm going to live and die by this sort of second group on the road here, hoping that it's going to come together to a sprint. It seems like it is. It seems like we got enough. You know, I'm in, what, 15th here. This is the moment. This right here, I should not have let that go. So we are 0.5, you know, we're half a mile out from the sprint, and I had to do, just went back and looked at it, probably 600 watts average for 15 seconds, which is almost a finishing sprint, just about. And to burn a sprint like that this close, you know, really I want to sprint from like 0.3, 0.2 miles out. So I just burned such a big hard effort to get back onto this group, and that's probably going to be the day for me. It looks like I think Deca holds on to this one. You can see him up the road up there. Kudos to him. Huge move. Great little finishing move. And again, that's the kind of thing you see on RGT that you don't necessarily see on other platforms, is somebody going solo from this distance and just sticking it. So that's awesome to see. Going full sprint here. My numbers are not bad. I still got up over 1,000 watts in this sprint. I might have done it a little bit early, but it does look like my positioning was pretty decent. I wish I'd been going 1,000 closer to the end and sort of ramped up into it rather than going too hard and then fading, but came out 5th, 4th in the field sprint, pretty close. Good racing today. Always like this race. You can see that sort of capital B shape there. There's a corner right behind where I am that's also pretty stout, but yeah, decent numbers today. 270, not incredible for me, but I was trying to be a little bit more conservative. And 10:31 in the sprint, pretty good. Still didn't nail the timing, but there's always next week, so see you then.